The great hall of the Galactic Council was vast and cold, its walls made of shimmering metal that reflected the countless stars outside. Species from across the galaxy filled the chamber, each seated on high thrones that seemed carved from cosmic stone. Their faces were strange and varied, some with multiple eyes, others with sharp scales or glowing skin, but none of them showed mercy. Today, in the center of the chamber stood Marcus Wren, the human envoy from Earth. His hands were tied behind his back with glowing restraints, and his clothes were torn and stained despite the bruises on his face and the exhaustion in his eyes. Marcus stood tall and calm. He was the last hope of his people to find peace with the Galactic Council. But now he faced death without even a chance to speak his final words. The May Council's leader, the Siller and High Chancellor, a tall figure covered in dark robes with eyes like burning coals, raised his voice so all could hear for crimes against peace and the destruction of countless worlds. This human and his people are sentenced to dissolution. He declared coldly there was no trial, no real judgment, just a decision made behind closed doors, and now a public execution to send a message. Marcus looked around the room, once locking eyes with members of different species. Some stared in hatred, others in fear, and a few showed hidden doubt, but the majority were united in their harsh decision. The chamber's silence deepened until the hiss of plasma blades turning on filled the air. The blades glowed bright blue and hummed with deadly energy. Marcus knelt, blood dripping slowly from his forehead, where he had been struck earlier. The executioners moved forward, ready to end the last human envoy, but Marcus's voice broke through the tension like a spark. "You have no idea what you've just done," he said firmly. His voice cleared despite his pain. His words echoed in the chamber, carrying a warning that went beyond this moment. The crowd was stunned. No one expected such defiance from a defeated man outside on Earth. The execution was being broadcast live. Every screen flickered with the grim scene, and billions of eyes watched in disbelief and anger. Families, soldiers, leaders all saw their representative fall without justice. The silence in homes turned into rising cries of shock and grief in cities and remote outposts alike. Something ancient and fierce began to stir deep beneath the surface of the Andes Mountains, in a hidden underground complex known only to Earth's highest command. Alarms blared urgently. The darkest secret of Earth's defense systems, code-named Protocol Black Dawn, had been set to activate only if the Galactic Council betrayed humanity. Now the time had come. Within moments, a global signal pulsed through military bases, orbital stations, and distant colonies. Massive weapons, long dormant and hidden from prying eyes, roared to life. The Moon's hidden bases launched squadrons of fighter ships, while Mars's fortified orbital platforms began rotating their heavy turrets. Space elevators hummed as supply ships hurried to fill freighters armed with advanced weaponry in orbit. Enormous ships called dreadnoughts, the most powerful war machines Earth had ever built, opened their blast bays. These titans had been designed to protect humanity in case of a great threat. Their black hulls reflected the stars as their weapons came online, glowing with energy and promise. Despite humanity's desire for peace, the death of their envoy changed everything. Earth was not a weak planet to be pushed around. It was a world forged through hardship, war, and survival. Now it was ready to show the galaxy the true meaning of human strength. The news spread rapidly across every colony, every settlement, every hidden listening post. The message was clear and simple. Humanity's envoy had been killed without cause, and Earth would not forget. It would not forgive. The silence of the past would soon be broken by the thunder of human fury. Back in the council chamber, a low murmur began to ripple among the alien leaders. Some of them looked uneasy, realizing they may have underestimated Earth's resolve. The Siller and High Chancellor raised his hand, demanding silence. But a shadow of doubt had been cast on Earth. Marcus Wren's last words continued to resonate. They were not a curse or a plea. They were a promise that the galaxy would soon understand, that humanity was not to be ignored, dismissed, or destroyed in the darkness beneath the Andes, in control rooms filled with blinking lights and humming consoles. Commanders prepared. The ships that had been waiting in silence would soon roar into action. Earth's response would be swift, calculated, and relentless. The Envoy's death was not the end of peace. It was the beginning of a storm that would shake the stars. Admiral Celeste Rayner stood on the bridge of the ESS Vengeance, her eyes locked on the massive view screen ahead. The image was grim. The recording of Marcus Wren's execution repeated endlessly. The man's calm courage and final words had ignited something deep inside every human watching. The silence on Earth was now filled with a burning need for justice, for something more than words. Celeste was no stranger to war. She had spent years training in Earth, Space Command, rising through the ranks by sheer determination and sharp instincts. But this moment was different. This was not just a battle. It was a reckoning. The Council had crossed a line, and humanity would respond with everything it had behind her. The bridge crew moved with precise efficiency. They prepared the Vengeance for the greatest mission in human history, a mission that would change the galaxy forever. The Vengeance was unlike any ship the Council had ever seen. It was over 12 kilometers long, a floating fortress, built in secret after first contact, armed with weapons so powerful they could level moons and disrupt star systems. Its black hull blended into the void, almost invisible except for the dim glows of its weapon ports. Celeste's second-in-command, Lieutenant Harris, approached quietly. "Admiral, all systems are green. Weapons online. Project Revenant is standing by." Celeste nodded without taking her eyes off the screen. "Good. We don't just respond. We remind the galaxy why they feared us in the first place." The Vengeance was the symbol of Earth's power, but it was also a message, a warning that humanity would not be pushed or destroyed. The ship held the key to Project Revenant, a secret weapon program designed to strike deep and fast. Its true nature was known only to a few outside Earth's atmosphere. The skies buzzed with activity. Moon bases opened their hangars, sending out squadrons of sleek black fighters that darted into space like swarms of angry hornets. Mars, long colonized and fortified, powered up its heavy orbital batteries, sending pulses of energy into space as a show of strength. Supply ships carried weapons and ammunition to distant outposts in the asteroid belt and beyond, each converted into fighting vessels in record time on Earth itself. Giant radar domes and communication arrays flashed signals to every corner of the solar system. The entire planetary defense network was synchronized, ready to move, as one unstoppable force. Civilian ships and freighters, once peaceful carriers of goods and people, were refitted overnight into armored gunships armed with the latest in railguns, plasma cannons, and missile systems. While many in the galaxy had dismissed humans as a young, untested species, Earth had never stopped preparing for a threat just like this. The wars of the past, the near-extinction events, had taught humanity harsh lessons. They had grown tough, resourceful, and united by a will stronger than metal. Admiral Rayner knew that the Council would send fleets to crush Earth's uprising. 12 fleets made of the most feared species in the galaxy were already gathering near the Kuiper Line, preparing to blockade the solar system and stop any human ships from leaving. But Celeste had no doubt that Earth's forces were ready. The war was not just about firepower. It was about strategy, ingenuity in the heart of the human spirit. Earth's commanders had spent years training for impossible battles. They had mastered new forms of warfare using stealth technology, AI-controlled drones, and even experimental weapons that bent the rules of physics. As the Vengeance powered its engines, a quiet hum filled the bridge. The energy coursing through the ship was enough to blind any enemy who dared challenge it. Yet Celeste's face was calm, steady. This was more than a battle for survival. It was a fight for humanity's honor. Her mind went to the people she had sworn to protect, the billions of souls on Earth and its colonies, who now looked to her as their shield and sword. The families who had lost loved ones, the soldiers waiting in cold silence on distant moons, the scientists who had poured decades into building these weapons, they all depended on her. She turned to her crew. "This is not just war," she said firmly. "This is a declaration. We will not bow. We will not hide. The galaxy must know, so humans are here to stay." The crew nodded, eyes shining with fierce loyalty. Outside, the Vengeance slipped through Earth's orbit, heading toward the Kuiper Belt. Other ships followed. Moon fighters and Martian cruisers formed lines, their weapons charged and ready as the fleet moved. Earth's hidden powers spread across space like a wildfire. Each ship carried hope, rage, and a promise to avenge Marcus, to protect their home and to fight until the stars themselves bowed to humanity's will. The Galactic Council had believed Earth was weak. They had thought killing an envoy would silence a rising power. Instead, they had awakened a force unlike any they had ever seen. The first clash happened sooner than anyone expected. The darkness beyond Neptune's orbit suddenly exploded with light and movement. Human fleets led by the massive ESS Vengeance met the combined forces of the Galactic Council's armada. 1,000s of ships of every shape and size filled the void, weapons ready and shields glowing like distant suns. The Council's fleets were powerful, their warships built over centuries and crewed by some of the deadliest alien species in the galaxy. They expected an easy victory, a swift end to what they called the Human Rebellion, but Earth had prepared. The human commanders had studied their enemies, tactics, weaknesses, and communication patterns for years. As the enemy fleet surged forward, the human ships scattered like shards of glass, using speed and cunning to avoid the initial barrage. The Vengeance itself hung back, a colossal fortress looming in the shadows, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. The first human fighters darted forward, small and fast, weaving between giant warships and firing precise bursts of plasma. The Council ships, though massive and heavily armed, struggled to target such tiny, agile opponents. Explosions lit up the darkness as ships from both sides were hit. The air was thick with tension and the deadly hum of weapons firing. Admiral Celeste Raynor's voice rang out calmly over the comms. "Hold formation. Target the Council's command vessels, disrupt their coordination. Use hit-and-run tactics, keep pressure on them." The human pilots listened and obeyed, their skill and training shining through. One by one, they began to chip away at the enemy's formations. The Council's fleet, used to overwhelming enemies with brute force, found itself frustrated by this new style of warfare. Their ships could hit hard, but they could not catch the lightning-fast humans. In the midst of battle, Marcus Wren's death became a rallying cry. The human crews fought not just for survival, but for vengeance. Every pilot remembered the Envoy's final warning, the promise that humanity would not fall quietly. Suddenly, the Vengeance unleashed its secret weapon, Project Revenant. A massive wave of energy erupted from its core, sweeping across the battlefield like a storm. It disabled the enemy's shields and scrambled their sensors, throwing their fleets into chaos. Council warships that had seemed invincible now drifted helplessly, easy targets for the human strike teams. The tide of the battle shifted. The Council's commanders screamed orders, trying to regroup, but their forces were fractured. Human ships seized the chance, blasting through weakened defenses and destroying critical systems on the Council's flagship, a terrifying dreadnought known as the Oblivion. Inside, the Oblivion chaos reigned. The alien captain barked orders, but panic spread quickly. Systems failed. Crew members were injured, and the ship's once mighty weapons flickered and died. The humans were closer than anyone had thought possible. Meanwhile, on the Vengeance's bridge, Admiral Raynor watched the destruction with a steady heart. "This is just the beginning," she said quietly. "We will push harder. We will not stop until the Council understands that humanity will fight for every inch of space." But the battle was not without cost. Human ships were lost, and brave pilots died. The silence of space was broken by the screams of explosions and the cries of those fighting for their lives. Yet even in loss, the human spirit burned brighter. Their sacrifice was not in vain. It was a message etched in the stars across the battlefield. A young pilot named Jonah Cade maneuvered his fighter through a hail of enemy fire. His ship shuddered from every hit, systems failing one after another, but he pressed on, eyes fixed on the Oblivion's bridge. Where the alien captain still tried to rally his forces, Jonah's hands moved with practiced precision, lining up a critical shot that could disable the enemy command center with a final burst of energy. 30, Jonah fired a missile that struck the ship's core. The explosion was massive, sending shockwaves through the enemy fleet. The Oblivion began to break apart, its power fading like a dying star. Back on Earth, millions held their breath as news of the battle came through. The Council's mighty flagship was crippled. The human fleets had not only survived, they had struck a deadly blow. Hope, long buried under fear, now flickered into flame. But the Galactic Council was not defeated, yet their response was swift and merciless. Reinforcements from distant corners of the galaxy began to converge, preparing to crush Earth's rebellion once and for all. Still, humanity had proven one thing: they would not go down without a fight. The battle had shown the galaxy a glimpse of human resilience, creativity, and the fierce determination that had carried them through centuries of hardship. Admiral Raynor knew that the war ahead would be brutal and long. The Council would throw everything they had to end this uprising, but she also knew humanity was ready. They had awakened something ancient and powerful, a force that could not be stopped by fleets or weapons alone. The stars themselves seemed to hold their breath as the conflict escalated. Humanity's relentless fury had been unleashed, and nothing in the galaxy would ever be the same again. The war was no longer just battles in space. It had spread into the very minds of those who fought it. The Galactic Council, stunned by the unexpected strength of humanity, unleashed its deadliest weapons, ancient machines of war left over from a forgotten age. These Titans' massive war constructs larger than cities drifted silently through the void, awakening with the sole purpose of crushing the human rebellion. They were cold, relentless, and nearly unstoppable. The Council's hope was that these machines would break Earth's fleet once and for all. Admiral Celeste Raynor stood on the bridge of the ESS Vengeance, her eyes narrowing as the sensors picked up the arrival of the colossal war machines. Their hulls were scarred and etched with alien runes that glowed faintly as if powered by some ancient energy beyond human understanding. The eerie silence they carried was almost worse than any weapon fire. They did not speak, did not negotiate. They only destroyed. The first of these Titans appeared at the edge of the solar system. The Council's fleets moved aside, giving the war machine a clear path to Earth's defenses. The moon bases scrambled their missiles and railguns, but the weapons barely scratched the surface of the Titan's armor. It moved forward with steady, unstoppable steps, crushing anything in its way. Celeste knew that brute force alone would not win this fight. The humans had to be smarter, faster, and more united than ever. She summoned her top commanders to the Vengeance's strategy room, a dark chamber filled with holographic maps and blinking consoles. Around the table sat the best minds Earth had to offer: tacticians, engineers, scientists, and pilots. Their faces were grim but determined. "We cannot face these machines head-on," Celeste said, her voice calm but firm. "Their armor is too strong, their weapons too powerful. We must find their weakness. Every machine has one. We just have to find it." The room buzzed with ideas. Some suggested high-powered energy blasts aimed at their joints. Others proposed hacking into their systems with AI viruses. One young engineer, Mara, who had spent years studying alien technology, pointed to the glowing runes etched on the Titan's hull. "These symbols aren't just decoration," she said. "They're part of the machine's power source. If we can disrupt their energy flow, we might disable them." It was a risky plan. Mara volunteered to lead a special strike team aboard a stealth ship designed to get close enough to plant explosives on the Titan's vulnerable points. Celeste agreed, knowing that bold moves were the only chance humanity had. As the fleet prepared for this daring mission, the war machines closed in on Earth. The skies above the planet grew darker with their presence. Cities held their breath as the moon bases launched waves of fighters and missiles to slow the Titans' advance, buying precious time. Mars' team slipped through the enemy lines under the cover of darkness, their ship nearly invisible against the blackness of space. They moved swiftly, hearts pounding with fear and determination. When they reached the Titan, the surface was hotter than they expected, energy pulsing beneath the alien runes. They planted explosives on the glowing symbols, and Mara connected a small device designed to hack the machine's power grid. The countdown began. Suddenly, alarms blared. The Titan's sensors detected their presence. Automated defense drones swarmed around the strike team, firing lasers and missiles. The stealth ship shook as it dodged and weaved. The crew working in perfect sync, Mara focused on the device, fingers flying over the controls as the explosives ticked down. Just seconds before detonation, the device hacked into the Titan systems, sending a shockwave through its energy core with a roar like thunder. The explosives detonated, the runes shattered. The machine's steps faltered, and its massive weapons went dark. The Titan crashed to the surface of the moon, shaking the ground like an earthquake. The victory was enormous, but came at a cost. Mara's ship was heavily damaged, and several crew members were lost during the escape. Yet the message was clear: the invincible machines could be beaten. Inspired by this success, Earth's forces renewed their efforts. The moon bases coordinated with orbital fleets launching attacks on the remaining war machines' weak points. Fighters and drones swarmed like angry wasps, striking fast and disappearing before the Titans could react. Back on Earth, civilians watched the battles unfold through news feeds and holograms. Fear was replaced by hope. The sight of their warriors daring to face the impossible gave them strength. People across the globe came together, sending messages of support, working in factories to build more ships, and training for the battles still to come. But the Council was not done. They revealed a new weapon: biological creatures bred for war, terrifying beasts with multiple limbs, armored hides, and minds as sharp as knives. These beasts poured from the shadows of enemy ships, boarding human vessels and turning space battles into brutal hand-to-hand fights. The stakes grew higher, and the losses mounted despite the chaos. The humans fought on with fierce resolve. Their strength was not just in their weapons, but in their unity and willpower. They adapted quickly, learning to fight the beasts with new tactics and weapons designed by Earth's finest scientists. Admiral Raynor knew the coming battles would test humanity's limits. The enemy was relentless, but so were the humans. Each victory, each sacrifice, built toward a greater purpose, a chance to reclaim their place in the stars and show the galaxy that Earth's fury was unstoppable. The war machines had been challenged, the beasts had been met with human courage, and the galaxy watched, waiting for the next move in this deadly game. The battle had grown fiercer than ever. After months of fighting, humanity's resolve had been tested beyond limits. The Galactic Council, desperate to crush Earth's resistance, had unleashed its deadliest warriors, elite alien generals known across the galaxy as the Shadow Legion. These were no ordinary commanders. Each was a master of war, feared for their ruthless tactics and unmatched skill. They had led countless fleets to victory, and now their eyes were fixed on Earth. Admiral Celeste Raynor stood tall on the bridge of the ESS Vengeance, staring at the holographic map that flickered before her. Red markers blinked relentlessly, indicating the arrival of the Shadow Legion's forces. The Council's dreadnoughts and warships followed close behind, forming an overwhelming wall of firepower. The fate of Earth hung in the balance. The human fleet was smaller, but it was faster, smarter, and driven by a fierce determination that no alien force could fully understand. The ships moved like a living organism, coordinating attacks, defending one another, and exploiting every weakness in the enemy lines. But the Shadow Legion was cunning and brutal. They used guerrilla tactics, surprise strikes, and psychological warfare to keep the humans off balance. In the midst of the chaos was Lieutenant Cale Arden, a young but brilliant pilot who had quickly risen through the ranks. His reputation was growing with every battle. Known for his fearless maneuvers and sharp instincts, Cale was chosen for a critical mission to lead a small squadron deep into enemy territory and strike at the heart of the Shadow Legion's command center. Cale's ship, the Raptor, was sleek and fast, equipped with experimental weapons that could tear through even the toughest armor. As he gathered his squadron, his thoughts drifted to the faces of those waiting for him back home, the family he had left behind, and the friends who believed in him. The weight of responsibility settled on his shoulders, but it only made him fight harder. The squadron slipped through enemy lines under the cover of a solar storm, using the chaos to mask their approach. The battlefield was a swirling mix of light and shadow, with lasers cutting through clouds of debris and explosions shaking the void. Chaos Team navigated carefully, avoiding patrols and mines, determined to reach the enemy's nerve center. When they arrived, the command station was a fortress built into an asteroid, heavily guarded and shielded. The Shadow Legion's leaders were inside, issuing orders and coordinating attacks that threatened to crush the human fleet. Kyle signaled his squadron, "This is it. We hit hard and fast. No mistakes." The assault was brutal. Enemy fighters swarmed to defend the station, and fierce dogfights erupted in tight corridors of space. Cale weaved through blasts and missiles, his Raptor's engines burning bright as he took down enemy ships with precision fire. His squadron followed, striking key targets and disrupting communications inside the station. Alarms screamed as explosions rocked the structure. The Shadow Legion's commanders realized they were under attack, but were caught off guard by the humans' ferocity. Cale's squadron fought with everything they had, refusing to back down even as their numbers dwindled. At one point, Cale found himself face-to-face with Commander Vrax, the leader of the Shadow Legion, and a terrifying alien warrior known for his cold cruelty. Their ships danced in a deadly game of cat and mouse, dodging blasts and counterattacking with skill. Cale's heart pounded as he searched for an opening. Then, with a sudden burst of speed and a well-aimed missile, Cale disabled Varax's engines. The alien ships spun out of control, crashing into the asteroid surface in a fiery explosion. The death of their leader sent shockwaves through the enemy ranks. With their command center crippled and their leaders scattered, the Shadow Legion's forces began to retreat. Cale's squadron, though battered and exhausted, had dealt a crushing blow. The victory was hard-won, but vital. Back on the Vengeance, Admiral Raynor received the news with a mixture of pride and concern. The enemy was wounded, but not defeated. The Council would regroup, and the next battles would be even more brutal. Meanwhile, Cale's success inspired others across the fleet. Stories of his bravery spread quickly, lifting the spirits of soldiers. And civilians alike. In the darkest hours of the war, hope burned brighter. But the cost of war was clear. Many of Cale's comrades did not return from the mission, their sacrifices marking the price of victory. The war was far from over, and every win was shadowed by loss. As Earth's forces prepared for what was next, they knew the fight was no longer just about survival. It was about proving to the galaxy that humanity was a force unlike any other. Against impossible odds, they had shown courage, unity, and strength. The battle with the Shadow Legion was a turning point, a fierce reminder that even in the face of overwhelming power, the human spirit would never break. The war had dragged on longer than anyone expected. Both sides suffered great losses, but humanity's spirit burned brighter with every battle. After their victory against the Shadow Legion, Earth's forces were regrouping, preparing for the next deadly move from the Galactic Council. But the enemy had a secret weapon, one so powerful it could decide the fate of the entire galaxy. It was called the Oblivion Core, a massive superweapon hidden deep inside a rogue star system capable of wiping out entire fleets and planets with a single blast. Admiral Celeste Raynor received the intelligence from Deep Space Scouts. The Council was moving the core closer to Earth, ready to unleash it and end the war in one devastating strike. The knowledge struck fear into the hearts of the commanders, but there was no time to hesitate. Earth's fleet had to strike first, or face total annihilation. The plan was dangerous. A strike team led by Cale Arden, now a seasoned veteran, would infiltrate the rogue system, disable the core, and destroy it before it could fire. The mission was nearly suicidal, but it was humanity's only hope. Cale gathered his best pilots and engineers aboard the stealth cruiser ESS Falcon. The crew knew the risks, but also understood the stakes as they slipped through space toward the rogue system. The silence was heavy with tension. No one spoke much. Each soldier prepared themselves for the battle they might never return from. The rogue star system was like nothing Cale had ever seen. A chaotic swirl of asteroids, deadly radiation, and unstable stars made navigation nearly impossible. Yet the core pulsed at the center, an ominous black sphere surrounded by rings of energy that crack, filled with raw power. It was a dark heart beating with destruction. The team moved carefully, scanning for enemy patrols and automated defenses. As they drew closer, waves of Council warships attacked space erupted in brilliant bursts of laser fire and missile trails, the Falcon weaving through the chaos with expert precision. The pilots fought fiercely, their skills tested to the limit as they defended the ship from relentless assault inside the Falcon. Kyle and his engineers worked to hack the core's shield systems. The core's defenses were powered by an ancient energy source that the humans barely understood. Time was running out. Suddenly, the core's alarms blared. A defense AI had detected their presence. Automated turrets on nearby satellites turned their barrels toward the Falcon, firing streams of deadly plasma. The crew scrambled, dodging the relentless barrage as Kyle pushed his ship closer. In a tense moment, Kyle's ship was hit, shuddering violently as systems failed one by one, but his resolve never wavered. He ordered the crew to focus on one goal: disable the core. The engineers fought back, rerouting power, repairing damaged systems, and launching counterattacks against the cores. AI, as the Falcon edged within range, launched a daring assault team in small attack pods. The pilots flew straight into the eye of the storm, dodging explosions and enemy fire. They reached the core surface, planting powerful charges designed to overload its energy matrix back on the Falcon. The countdown began. The crew held their breath as the charges armed, the core's pulsing energy growing unstable. The Council's ships closed in for a final attack, but the Falcon's defenses held firm, buying just enough time. Then, with a blinding flash, the charges detonated. The core exploded in a wave of energy that lit up the dark system like a second sun. The shockwave shattered nearby asteroids and sent enemy ships spinning helplessly into the void. Cale's team had done it. They destroyed the Oblivion core, but victory came with a heavy price. The Falcon was badly damaged and drifting systems failing rapidly. The strike team scrambled to escape as the rogue system began collapsing from the core's destruction. Gravity waves ripped through space, pulling everything toward a growing singularity. Cale took the controls, steering the Falcon through a deadly maze of collapsing debris and energy storms. The crew worked together, repairing engines and firing at pursuing enemy ships. The tension was unbearable, every second a fight against death. Just when escape seemed impossible, a sudden burst of speed, Kyle pushed the ship's engines beyond limits. They broke free of the singularity's pull, hurtling towards safety with hearts pounding as the Falcon limped back to Earth's orbit. The news of their success spread quickly. The Council's most feared weapon was gone. The tide of war turning in humanity's favor. Admiral Celeste greeted Cale and his crew with pride, but her eyes held the weight of loss. Many brave souls had been lost in the mission. The war was far from over, but hope was alive across Earth. People celebrated quietly, knowing the victory had come at great cost. The galaxy was watching, and humanity had just proven that even the darkest threats could be faced and overcome by courage, unity, and relentless will. The battle to protect Earth's future had been won, but the war still called for more sacrifice. The stars had become a battlefield, and humanity was ready to fight until the very end. The final battle had come. After months of fighting and sacrifice, Earth's fleet was ready to face the full force of the Galactic Council. The Council's warships gathered like a dark storm on the edge of human space, their weapons gleaming like death itself. The time for hiding and small victories was over. Humanity would show the galaxy its true strength. Admiral Celeste Rayner stood on the command deck of the ESS Vengeance, her face set with determination around her. Officers and soldiers prepared for the fight that would decide the future of Earth and possibly the entire galaxy. The air was thick with tension and quiet prayers. Lieutenant Cale Arden, now a respected leader, checked his ship's systems one last time. The Raptor was battle-worn, but ready. His squadron was loyal and fierce, ready to follow him into the jaws of death.